So good evening, everyone. If you guys, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Tanya, and I have been using Silhouette Studio now since 2022. So for not quite 4 years yet, because I think I started toward the latter part of 2022. But for the last, let's say, good three years or so, I've been using Silhouette Studio, and I am pretty much self-taught, meaning that I started watching videos, being in other groups, watching what they did, and then trying to figure out how to do those things for myself. So hold on one second. Oh, no. Okay, hold on one second. All right, so I apologize for that. But again, like I said, I'm self-taught. I started out by watching videos on YouTube, following other people in some of the other larger rhinestone groups, and then decided that I just wanted to branch out on my own and kind of do my own thing. And so I just kept practicing the tools, the things that I had learned along the way. And here we are, 3.5 years later, and I'm still creating designs, and I learn something new every day. So you're not going to get it, on the very first try, but that's okay, because as long as you continue to keep practicing, you will get better. I promise. Because the one thing about creating rhinestone templates in Silhouette Studio, or any other program for that matter, is that everything is repetitive, right? You're going to use the same tools almost every time. Um, it really just depends on the complexity of the design for the different tools that you will use. So if you're creating rhinestone designs, like I said, you're going to use these tools, and each time you use them, you're going to get better and better. So what I currently have up on my screen is a design that I found on Friday. I saw a shirt that someone had done, and it said Happy Friday on it. And I was like, you know what? I think I want to make me a little Friday shirt. And so I just went out to Google and found a graphic that I liked. And that is what I currently have on my screen right now. And so I'm going to show you this one. But this one requires us to use the trace panel and some other tools within Silhouette Studio. So before I do this one, I'm going to do the simple one, right? Because it's always easier to see how you do something simple and then advance those skills into something else. So we're going to do the Friday one, but then we're also going to do the heart with the scatter pattern that I had posted or shared pictures of when I created the post today. So I'm going to open up a brand new mat. I could call it mat. I think Silhouette calls this your media. But I've opened up a brand new screen. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw out a heart. Okay. And where you go to do that is over here on the left-hand side of your screen. There's a bunch of icons that run down the edge of the screen. Okay. And because this is not a beginner class, just a very quick tutorial, I'm not going to go through every single one of these tools, but I will show you the ones that I'm going to use today. So I'm going to go to this one here, and it is called the Flexi Shape tool. Okay. And it's this tool right here that underneath the rectangle tool. It's called the Flexi Shape tool, and I'm going to go to the Flexi Shape, and I'm going to draw out a heart. So I'm going to click on the heart, okay, and then I'm going to come back to my mat or my media, and as you can see that my cursor is no longer an arrow, it is now a pair of crosshairs. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to click, and I'm going to drag out a heart. Okay, and I'm going to drag out that heart to about the size that I would want for my shirt. Okay, so I want my heart to pretty much fill up the front of my shirt. So right now, this heart is sized at 8.95 inches in width and 8.24 inches in height. And so when I think about that, right, I'm thinking about this particular design and I'm like, okay, but I also want to add the scatter pattern to the heart. So I still want to make sure that everything fits on the shirt that I plan to put it on. And I like to stay within the 10.5 inches range, anywhere from 10 inches to 10.5 inches, sometimes slightly larger. But I also create templates that I sell. And so I try to be mindful of persons that may wear a smaller size shirt. So I typically will tend to size my designs for those that wear anywhere from a small to a 2XL size shirt. So I know that 10 inches is a little bit wide for a small shirt, but because I'm creating the scatter and the scatter is going to go out towards the edges, the heart itself, it will still be centered within that smaller frame of shirt. So it should work. So I've drawn out my heart, okay? And now that I've drawn out my heart, I'm just going to go ahead and give it some color. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to work off both sides of my screen. I'm going to work off the left because there are icons over here that I'm going to use. And then over here on the right, there's another set of tools that you'll use frequently. So I'm going to go to the paint palette, which is that second icon from the page setup screen at the top. And I'm going to click on it and I'm just going to go ahead and turn the heart red. Okay, so I'm going to turn our heart red. And from there, I want to see, well, what type of fill pattern do I want for my heart? Okay. And so I'm going to go down here and I'm going to click on the rhinestone panel. And the rhinestone panel on my interface is the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th icon from the bottom, but it's the one that looks like a circle with a bunch, kind of looks like a rhinestone, okay, or a diamond of some shape. But we click on that, that's going to open up our rhinestone panel. And you know that in the rhinestone panel, you have 3 different fill effects that you can use, okay? You have the first one is the edge fill. And when I click on it, it then just takes that shape and it just puts the holes around the edge of the shape, okay? So that is our edge fill. If I click on the second one, that one is called the linear fill. Okay, and the linear fill is the fill pattern that just takes your stones from up and down, left and right. Okay, so if I click that, that is the fill pattern that we get. And the next one on the very end is the radial fill. Okay, and the radial fill is the one that you use if you have shapes that have curves in them. Sometimes you'll find that the linear fill may look better because the radial fill tries to fill in your design from the inside out or from the outside in. So if I click on it, you see how the fill pattern changes. It gives us that more circular shape of the heart. But as we get towards the center, we start losing that definition and we start having gaps within the shape because it's trying to fill it in with the curves. Okay, and you can see the curves in the fill of the heart. So it then becomes just a matter of preference and what you like as you go through the design, whether you're going to use your linear fill or whether you're going to use your radial fill. Okay. But for now, I'm just going to turn on the edge fill, right? Because I just want you to see how you can use the rhinestone effect while you're working with your graphic to help you with your placement of where your rhinestones are going to be when you go to create your scatter. Okay. So in order for us to go and create the scatter, we're going to go down to, let's see, we're going to go open up the offset. Okay. And the offset, well, we're going to create offsets, around this heart. Okay. So all that's going to do is just put outline around the heart. So the offset panel is over here on the right, and it's the one that looks like a double star. Okay. And so you click on it and I'm going to click on offset, right? While my heart is selected and we know it's selected because we have the box around it, I'm going to click on the offset. Okay. Now the offset will automatically open up to whatever offset you created the last time you used it. So the last time I created an offset, my distance from my shape was at a distance of 0.175. And because I have the rhinestone effect turned on, and I'm just going to zoom in my screen a little bit, because I have it turned on, you can see exactly where those rhinestones show up in your offset. Okay. If you like that distance, then you can leave it there. If you don't like that distance, you can increase it. Okay. Because I zoomed in, the software thought that I was done. And so it came off of it and it made that offset at that distance. But I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to delete it. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click on my heart again. And I'm going to click the offset panel so that you can see when you increase the distance, and you can do this either by typing in, but I'd like to use the arrows up and down. I'm just going to go ahead and click the up arrow and just start increasing that offset. Okay. And so I'm going to just keep increasing it until I see a distance that I like. Okay. But I'm also paying attention to my height and width because I also want to make sure that I don't make my offsets too large for the shirt. So right now, at a distance of 0.290, at a width of 9.539. So I think I'm pretty safe. I still have enough room that I can add some additional offsets. So now that I'm done with this one, I can either click apply, right? And it would go ahead and it will apply this offset. But I know that I want to create more because I want to create that scatter pattern. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create another offset. Okay. I'm going to shrink this down just a little bit. So I'm going to click offset. My first offset is still selected. So I'm going to click offset again. And again, when I create that offset, it's going to create it at the same distance that it created the last one. But I think I want this one to be a little bit closer to the first offset that I created. So I'm going to go ahead and take my distance down and I'm going to bring those rhinestones closer to the first one. Okay. And I'm going to make sure that when I do that, that the stones are not going to be touching and there's still going to be enough space in between when I get ready to cut this. So right now I'm at a distance of 0.185. I think I like that. And so I still want to create some more offsets. So I'm going to go ahead and create another. Okay. But this time I want to distance it out just a little bit further. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to increase it. Okay. So I'm going to use my up arrows and I'm going to increase that offset just a little. See, I bring it down to about 2.85. Looking at my shirt, looking at the width, I see that I'm currently at 10.481 in width. So I think I can safely create one more offset. And I'm going to bring that one back down. And I'm going to bring it again a little bit closer, just like I did the other one. So I'm going to bring that one down to, let's say, 1.85 was what we did the last time. So I'm going to do the same thing. So now I have my 4 offsets that I created. You could create more, just depends on you and it depends on the design you're working on. But I think I'm happy with that. It tells me that my design is going to be 10.851 inches in width and 10.134 inches in height. And I'll be okay with that. So now that I have all of my offsets done, what I want to do is I want to come back to the rhinestone panel. Okay, so I'm going to click on the rhinestone panel and click off the offset, open up the rhinestone panel. And from here, I'm going to start, I'm going to just verify. I'm on SS10 stones or 10SS. Okay, that's what I like to work with. That's what's mostly standard. Or if I wanted to see what this design looked like in 6s, we could just, again, highlight the whole thing. Drag a box around, drag a box around all of it, click 6SS, and then that will just change all of the current effect so that we can see what it looks like in the smaller stone size. But I'm going to keep it at SS10 or 10SS. I'm going to do that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in here and I'm going to adjust my spacing. Okay. The default spacing in Silhouette Studio is 0.039, and that is good. But if you like your stones to have a little bit more density to them, you want them to be a little bit closer, then you can adjust this spacing. And the sweet spot that I like to land in is 0.020. Okay. Let me highlight this again, and but 0.020 is the sweet spot that I like to land in. It typically does well for my cutting machine. I cut with a Cameo 4, but it also is good for if you're exporting your designs out of Silhouette Studio to cut with your Cricut cutting machines. I tend to find that this is a good happy medium for those machines as well. If you're cutting with something a little bit more precise, like a Juliet or Romeo, or even a Graphtec, and even sometimes a Cameo, and I'm not going to say that you can't with the Cricut, you can bring your spacing down a little bit tighter. I've heard people say they've gone down as far as 0.013. I haven't ventured that far. I have done 15, and it is pretty close. But again, like I said, 20 is usually the sweet spot that I typically will stay at. So I'm going to leave my spacing here at 0.020. And then I'm going to go ahead and just apply some color to those offsets that we created. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and just turn them a different color, and we'll just pick green. But all of it was selected, and so it also turned that inside one green as well. So I'm just going to deselect and go back to my heart, click on it, and then turn it back red. Okay, so from there, now we're going to start making that scatter. Okay, so I have the first offset selected. I'm going to show you, I got this first offset selected, and I think I want that one to be close to the inside of my heart at that spacing that we selected, which was the 0.020. So then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click on the next offset. Okay, and when I open back up the Rhinestone panel, to create that scatter, what you do is you adjust the spacing between the stones. Okay, so if I go in here and I use my up arrow, okay, the up arrow takes things in increments of, I think, 125. So, but you can always type in this box as well, whatever spacing you want to be. And again, this is the spacing between your stones. So if I click the up arrow, and I didn't select that right. So that one is at 1.25, but you see how the spacing between those holes got further apart from the first offset that I did. Okay. If I click it again, it just keeps spacing those out. Okay. So I just kept clicking. I'm at 500. Here's at 625. And you can just keep going as far as you want. And the further you go out, the less amount of stones you will have. Okay. So I'm going to bring it back down, and I'm going to see what the 125. Okay. And then I'm going to click on the next offset that we created. Okay. And then I'm going to increase the spacing for that. And I'm just going to click it until I find something that I like as far as the placement of where those stones land. Okay. And then I click the last one, and I'll do the same thing. I'm just going to increase that spacing. And as you do that, that is how you create that scattered pattern effect. So now I have my last offset at a distance of 500. I might come back in here now that I'm looking at it, and maybe I'll play with the spacing of the first offset. So that one was at the 0.020. If we click it like that, That just took it to 125. I think the one above it is 125, and then we have the ones behind it. So now that I have my scatter pattern of stones behind my heart, I can now just come back to the heart and I can choose which fill pattern I want. Okay. So if I click on the linear fill, it looks like this. And the reason it looks like this is because, remember, the last setting that I used was the 0.125. So it made that spacing when I clicked on it, that same one, but I want it to be a little bit denser. And so I'm just going to go ahead and bring it back down. And at this point, you have to type it in, because if I use the down arrow, it's going to take me all the way down to 0. And if you leave it at this, you will not be able to cut your flock. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to type in the distance that I like, which is that 0.020, and hit enter. And that is how I created that heart with the scatter behind it. We'll go ahead and just turn the media black just so that it kind of shows up a little bit so you guys can see it. Okay. So I'm gonna stop for just a second, and I'm going to see if there are any questions before we move on to the next one. And if you guys will be really patient with one another, you can unmute your mic, because as I'm in my share my screen, it's hard for me to toggle back and forth. So if somebody has a question, you can unmute your mic. And if you guys just don't talk over one another, I'll try to answer your questions as you ask them.
Sorry, I thought I was on unmute. Hi, this is Adeline. Hi, everyone.
Hi, Adeline.
Hi. So I'm at the point where I did my scatter, but I'm trying to do the center. I went back to my center, and it's not filling in the way yours did.
It should. I mean, if you haven't, you're sure you clicked on it and not not one of the offsets behind it?
Well, when I clicked on it, I went back to the rhinestone panel, or I'm in the rhinestone panel, and I clicked on linear, and it gives me, I think my spacing may be off.
Okay. Well, when you go to the rhinestone panel and while your heart is selected, what are your settings in that box? Like, what do you see your distance showing at, not the spacing, what do you see your spacing showing as?
1.
1. Go ahead and just type in that box, and then just type in 0.020 and see what happens.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, very welcome. Does anybody else have a question?
I'm trying to get, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm
It's okay, Jackie.
to get my mat to have a color behind it, and right now it's just transparency.
So if you go to the page setup icon, which is usually the very top one, okay, you click on that, and then down at the bottom where you have those colors,
right?
if you click on any one of those, it should turn the back of that mat that color.
No, it's still transparent.
Is your transparency turned up?
Yep, it's on 100.
Turn it down to 0.
But if I turn it down to 0, I still get those lines, the grid.
Okay, so then you have your grid turned on. So just go to the do you see the back at the top of the page? You got it?
I got it. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Anybody else?
Whoever that was that you just walked through turning the lines off, also know this: when you do get ready to turn those lines back on, it's going to also highlight your crosshairs. So if you don't want that, know that you'll have to turn those off when you go back to put those lines back in. Because everybody doesn't
Exactly.
work with the lines on their mat. I prefer to work with the lines because I like to see the measurements. But if you don't and you're doing like Tanya, whenever you do put those lines back on, you're going to have crosshairs. That used to frustrate me to no end. So
Exactly.
just just know that they will pop up. It's an automatic thing. I don't know why Silhouette has it set like that, but you'll have to uncheck that box.
You have to uncheck the crosshairs.
If
Yes.
you want them to go away, they are annoying if you don't work with them all the time. But
Oh,
we,
okay.
yeah, just
So
know that is going to happen.
So I will show you all exactly what Phyllis is talking about. So I'm going to turn my media mat back to white so that you can see what happens. So if you go into the grid section of the page setup, okay, that's where you'll have all of these options, okay, and that's really like for another class, but there's one here and it's called crosshairs, okay, and if you
Hmm.
happen to be in this particular part of the setup and you're messing around with things and you accidentally click that, when you click it, you see what happens. You see
Yes.
how these crosshairs then show up on my screen. And
Hmm.
when you don't know like what you clicked, you're like, why won't these things go away? Why won't they go away? So if it happens, like I said, there's no need to get concerned about it. It's just because the crosshairs have been turned on, and all you have to do is go to the page setup icon, go to the one that looks like a grid, and then just go in and deselect your crosshairs, and they go away. Okay. Anybody else have a question? All right, you guys are good. All right, well then moving on to the next one. The next one that I did was, again, we're gonna go back to the Friday. Yay, happy Friday. It's Saturday now, but it was Friday yesterday. And this particular design, like I said, is one that I saw on Google and I liked it. So I just copied and pasted it and brought it into Silhouette. Okay, so I've dropped it on this mat. For the purposes of this part of the training, I'm going to turn this media mat back white because I want you to be able to see what happens when I do certain things. So what I'm getting ready to do is I am getting ready to use the trace feature in Silhouette that allows you to be able to take a design and turn it into the vector line art graphic that you need in order to work with the rhinestone panel, right? Because as this design sits right now, we can't do anything with it, right? We click on it, it puts the box around the whole image. If we went over here and we click the rhinestone panel and then we tried to turn on an effect, all it's going to do is just put again, around the edge or the box shape of the graphic itself. Although now that I do that, look with that doesn't look too bad. And we probably could work with that. But again, that's for another class. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to just turn off the effect and I'm going to scale it up a little bit just so you guys can see. Okay. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to open the trace panel. Now the trace panel looks different on this version of Silhouette in the 5. It still kind of looks like a butterfly to me, except now this time I'm only seeing half the butterfly. But in the older version of Silhouette, it kind of looked front face. It was facing out towards you, but I always said it looked like a butterfly or a piece of toast. But for me, and in the interface that I am working on, it is the fourth icon from the bottom, but when you hover over it, it says open trace panel. So I'm going to click on that. Okay. And there's several different ways that you can do this. You can you can draw a box around the entire image and do select trace area. You can also click on the eyedropper tool under the trace panel and you can trace by color. So let's say we only wanted the red part of this design. We could click on that and just trace the red. And then there's magnet trace, okay? And I don't play around with magnet trace a lot. I know it's a useful feature. I don't use it so I don't necessarily teach it. And so I'm not going to go into that today. But what I will show you is the two that I do use frequently, which is either trace the whole thing or trace by color. So if I do the select trace area, okay, what I would do is I would just take my cursor and draw a box. Well, I'm going to click select trace area. And when you do that, my cursor went from being a pointer to a set of crosshairs. Okay. So I'm just going to click anywhere in this open area of this graphic, and I'm going to click and I'm just going to drag a box. Oh, I didn't grab the whole thing. Okay. But that's okay, because I think I can just release it. And when I do that, then I can just go and pull up the box in the area that I want to trace. Okay. And when you do that, you give Silhouette a minute to work its magic. And if all goes well, it will trace this image and give you the yellow it will fill in with yellow. Okay. But as you can see, the only thing that filled in with yellow for us was there was a very faint kind of like offset or inset in that particular design. Just kind of scrolling so you guys can see, right? So that's what it gave us the trace of. But I wanted to trace all of the image. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here and I'm going to I'm going to play with the threshold. Okay. And depending on your graphics, sometimes you may turn your threshold up or you may turn your threshold down. So I'm going to start with turning the threshold up and see what happens. Okay, so as I take my cursor and click on this little blue dot and scale it up, just kind of slide it along this thing, you see how it continues to turn that yellow. Okay, so this is what I want, right? I want all of that red background selected, okay, and I want the Friar part to kind of stand out. So that is at a threshold of 56. You can then use your up arrow if you want to see if you can fine tune it just a little bit more. But the more you go up, the more it's going to try to fill in what else is behind there. So I don't want all of the rest of that. So right now, like I said, between 56 and 60 is the threshold that seems to work. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and click trace. Okay. When I click trace, when it's done, it goes away. It leaves your original graphic on top. But when you click on it and drag it out of the way, I'm just going to drag it off to the side, you're left behind with the trace of the image. Okay. I'm going to try to zoom in. Part of this is being obscured by my Zoom tools. But anyway, so here's our image. Okay. And it's a little dirty. There's some speckles that I can see. You can't see them. There's some speckles and things that we would need to clean up. But for the most part, that's the pretty decent trace. Okay. So that's how you can trace by using the select all. Okay. If we wanted to trace by color, I'm going to bring the graphic back and I'm going to show you real quick. So I'm going to bring the graphic back and I'm going to this time click the eyedropper tool. Okay. So I'm going to click the eyedropper tool and then I'm going to click trace by color. Okay. When I click trace by color, my pointer is going to turn into a pencil-like tool. Okay, I'm going to then drag that pencil tool to the color that I want to trace. Okay, so I want to trace the red. Okay, I'm going to click on the red. And it gave me portions of it, but I wanted to trace all of it. So you go down to where it says trace by color options. And right now, the single area is selected. I'm going to go ahead and click all areas. Okay, so all areas that are red, we click that. Okay, and so now it has filled in everything that was red. And if you're satisfied with that, okay, you can also increase your tolerance here if you think that the outline is not sharp enough. And I'm going to just go ahead and turn the tolerance up just a little bit, see if I can get those nice clean edges. Okay, once I'm satisfied with that, then you can go ahead and you click trace. Okay. Silhouette's made its trace. Again, the graphic is on top. All you have to do is click, drag it off to the side, and we now have our trace. Okay. And as I'm looking at this, just from where we currently stand, this trace was a lot better than the other trace. The other trace left us with a lot of kind of debris on the edges and such. And so we're not going to use this one. We'll go ahead and delete it. We'll use the one that we trace by color because it's much cleaner. Okay. Does anybody have any questions on that before I move forward? No? Okay. So now that we have our trace, I'm just going to go ahead and I'm just going to scale it up to what size I want it to be on my shirt. Okay. And so I'm going to scale this to, let's see. Right now it is 9.9 inches in height and it is 7.65 inches in width. If you wanted to make it a little wider, you could. We could drag it out, kind of see what that looks like, you know. Maybe I'll drag it out here to 8.6 and still leave the height at 9.9. Okay. So again, this is our graphic, and but it's still all one piece, right? If I go to the rhinestone panel, which I like to do after I complete a trace, right? Because I like to just see what the design looks like and whether or not it will be one that will be suitable for turning into a rhinestone template. So I'm going to go out here to the rhinestone panel and I'm just going to start with the edge fill, right? I'm just going to see what it looks like when I put the stones around the edge. Okay. And right off the bat, I'm like, yay, this looks really good, right? This is going to make a great design. I'll go ahead and just kind of turn my media black for a moment and then turn those stones to a color like white so you can see the contrast, so you can see what it looks like, right? And just like that, that would be a great design all on its own. You could do that. You could put it on the dark black t-shirt or any other color t-shirt and just do, whatever color rhinestones you wanted to do. And this would be ready to go. Okay. But if we wanted to fill in the back of it, right now, as it stands, if I go back to the rhinestone panel and I click on one of the other fill patterns, so I click on the linear, right? We have, it shows us what it would look like in the linear fill. And then if we turn on our radial fill, it looks like this, okay? So that would be done. I mean, we could be done with that. I mean, you could go in here, of course, and if you like the radial fill, you could come in and release those rhinestones, maybe make a few little edits, see if you could add a few stones here and there, or you could increase the size of the design a little bit and see how those stones fall into place. Like if I increase it a little, you see how the stones kind of fill in just a little bit more. But I want to be mindful of where I am with the design when I do that. So I did increase it. It's now at a height of 10.432, a width of 9.056. And if you wanted to play around with it, you could, like I said, because we haven't yet done anything with the original graphic. We're only looking at it with the rhinestone effect turned on. So we can make all kinds of adjustments. We can make it wider. We could come in here. We could pull on one of the side root here and drag it in and see what that does with the stones. There's so many different things that you can do with your design to see exactly how it's going to shape up before you actually release the rhinestones. Okay. Because after you release the rhinestones and you start making adjustments, then you have to just kind of, and you don't like it, you have to use your undo button to go back to the stage before. But this way it allows you to be able to kind of see it before you actually release the rhinestones. Okay. So I'm going to just use my undo button and I'm just going to take it back to where it was. Let's see, right there. And then I actually then added the scatter behind this particular design. So we did the same thing we did the last time, right? But I'm going to go ahead and turn the mat back to white so that you can see when I add the offsets to the design, right? So here's our design, and we can just go ahead and turn that a color if we want. I'll just go ahead and turn it purple, okay? And then now that it's selected, I'm gonna go ahead and again, go to my offset panel. It's the double star, click on it and click offset, right? And the last time we did the offset, we were at 0.185. The offset is also trying to fill in that empty space that was left from the fryer. Okay. You don't have to concern yourself with that right the moment, right? We're really just concerning ourselves with the outer part of the offset so we can see where those stones are landing. And so I'm going to try to zoom it in again a little bit for you. So right now that first offset is pretty close to those stones in the first part of the design. So again, because I just moved this, it came off of it. I'm going to delete it and do it again so that you can see. I'm going to click here. I'm going to click on my offset and I want to increase my offset just a little bit. Okay. So I'm going to just increase it to maybe saying it's 205, 210. It's still moving. Oh, it's at 270. Let me go ahead and go into the rhinestone because I think it's because I'm on the radial fill pattern that I did from the last time. So let me go ahead and turn on the edge fill so that I can see just the edge. Okay, so there's that edge. And maybe I'll go ahead and put another offset. So I'll go back to my offset panel, click another one, but I'm going to bring that one in a little bit, just like we did the last time when we worked on the heart. I'm going to bring that one in. And maybe I make one more offset. So I click it again, and then I'll leave that one there. Okay. So now that I've created the number of offsets that I want for this particular design, I'm just going to scroll back out a little bit. Okay. The very first one that we created, the very first offset, that one tried to fill in the space, like I said before, where the fryer was. So if I pull this out of the way, you can see it. You can see where it tried to fill in that empty space. I don't necessarily want that to be in that particular part of the design. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to that very first offset that I created. Okay, you see it? Here's the very first one that I created. I'm going to just go ahead and hit undo so it goes back, excuse me, it goes back into place where it was. Uh-oh, hitting the wrong button, sorry. I'm going to hit undo. And what I'm going to do is while it's selected, I'm going to right click with my mouse and I'm going to click release compound path, right? Because once I release the compound path, all of the things that were separate and not touching when I created the first offset then become their own individual little objects, right? And you can see that they're their own little individual objects because it put a box around all of those different pieces. And since I don't want those pieces, all I have to do is come in here and just delete them. Okay, so I'm going to just deselect so that I don't delete my offset. I'm just going to click anywhere on the on the screen, and then I'm just going to click on each of those areas that I don't want. Okay, so I'm just going to get rid of all of those. Okay, so now that I have all of those deleted, I'll just go ahead and bring this one back and line it back up where it goes. Okay, so that goes there. And now we're going to do the same exact thing. We're going to go ahead and we're going to click on our offsets and we're going to see what spacing we like to create that scatter. So I'm going to go back to the rhinestone panel. My spacing is set at 0.020, and I'm just going to use the up arrow, and it's going to take us to a spacing of the 125. I might go ahead and increase it again, and then I'm going to just keep doing that for each of the offsets until I find the spacing that I like for my scatter. Okay, I'll turn the media black, and then we'll go ahead and I will just drag a box. Oh, excuse me, I'll just drag and select all three of those offsets and turn them in white. Oh, accidentally grabbed the inside, so that's okay. We'll just deselect, and then I can click on it and then turn it back to the purple. And there we have it. That is our Frye with a scatter pattern behind it. Okay. And it really is just as simple as that. It's just a matter of creating offsets behind the design and then just playing with the spacing to figure out like what you like. So I can just keep going back in here and just keep clicking them and just kind of seeing where they land and how far out you want your scatters to be or how close you want your scatters to be. And you can work with them in either direction, you know, depending on what it is you're trying to achieve. Like I said, though, you don't want to be at a spacing of 0 because a spacing of 0 is just going to be way too close for when you go to cut your template. See, I'm just clicking on the offset and I'm just clicking on that spacing. And like I said, if you space and it's too far apart, again, like I said, you can always go in here and you can type in a distance. Excuse me, you can type in a spacing. So that one was 750. If I want to see what it looked like at 635, because 635 is not one that it'll give you, but you can do that. All you do is type in the number and hit enter. So it's just like I said, you just go in there and you just start playing around with those numbers, and whatever the spacing is that you make will line those stones up to give you that scattered effect. And it's just, and that's it. Anybody have any questions on this particular design?
Oh, that's very good. Yes. Thank you.
And after
You're
that, do you
welcome.
select all and save it? You have to group it?
Well, at this point, we haven't done anything, right? Right now, remember, the design is still the design. Like we haven't done it. If we
Right.
go in here and we turn the effect off, right?
Okay.
Like if I go in here and I drag a box around everything and I turn the rhinestone effect off,
Uh-huh.
this is what we've got, right? So we've got to remember that once we do all of these things, then we have to go in and we have to release our rhinestones, right?
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So if I go, so we can go through that real quick. Like I can go back in here and I'm just going to go back with my
Thank
undo
you.
key.
Okay.
Okay. And I'm going to work with I'm going to go back because do I like this spacing? Let me see. 0.020. Oops. I'm going to make that's 20. Ah. 0.75. Let's see. 100. What does that look like? No. 100. Okay, so maybe I'll do that, and then I'll take the next one and make it 150. Yeah. Okay, maybe I like this. Okay, so I'll leave this at that. So the first thing I'll do is, like I said, now when I look at this, and sometimes I can tend to be a little anal about my designs. First off, I don't like the little red outline that I get behind my holes. Okay, so I'm going to come in here and I'm just going to turn that red outline off. In order to do that, you go over here to the toolbar on the right and you go to the lines style panel, okay, which is usually directly underneath the paint palette, and click on it. And I'm going to go to the second one, okay, and that one is the line color. Okay, and I'm going to click the fill color that is empty, right? This box right here that has this triangle in it, it just removes the line color from your design. So I'm going to just turn that off. And so now you can kind of see it without that red outline
Mhm.
around it. So now that I've done that, I look at it and I go, okay, when I get ready to release these rhinestones, I'm looking at spaces where I might want to try to fill in. Like I might want to get a rhinestone here. I might want to try to fit a rhinestone there, over in this little spot right here. But these are the manual edits that you do, after the fact. Or,
Right.
like I said, I play around with my spacing. So I can go back, I can click on this and go back to the rhinestone panel and I can say, okay, I'm at a distance of 0.020. What happens if I change the distance to 2.5, right? Let's see, does that make it any better? Right? No, I don't know. Does that make it more cleanup for me? Let's see if I take it to 2.2. Okay, it fills it back in a little bit, but doesn't fill in those spaces that I said I might need to clean up. So this is when I might go and say, let's see if I can take it down just a smidgen. Let's say if I go to 18, right? Because I know I can do 20. I know I said I could do 15, so let's see if 18. Let's see what 18 spacing does. Click it to 18. Okay, I brought it down to 18, and that filled in some of those gaps just a little bit better. Okay, and then I have to make up my mind whether or not I'm happy with that. Okay, if I'm not happy with it, I might come back and I might say, okay, well, let me see what happens if I change the fill pattern, right? Let me see how I like this if I use the linear. Okay, so I'm going to change it to linear. And when I change it to linear, I'm like, oh, okay, now I have a design that, looks more symmetrical. There's a whole lot less cleanup for me to do. So maybe I'll keep it in this particular fill pattern because I don't want to have to do all of that cleanup. There's a little bit of cleanup because I might come in here and I might remove, some of these stones right here, just so that this R, you can see it a little bit better. And I might come down here to this first Y and I might remove the stone that's right here. And then add a stone right here on this line at the bottom to fill in that Y. And then I may come in here and I might add some stones down here. But what it's trying to do is it's trying to give me that circular shape, but in the linear format. So at this point, again, it's going to be a matter of what your preference is and how much manual cleanup you want to do to the design. But I think I'm going to stick with the linear because it's just less cleanup. So now that I'm happy with that, I'm at my spacing of 18. Let's just see real quick if I take it back to 2.0, how much it changes. Okay. It changed a little bit. Let's see, I'm trying 18 again. Let me look at that. I think 18 looks a little bit better from my eye. So I think I'm going to go ahead and leave it at 18. I know I can still cut that, so I'm okay with that. You guys all know that at the very bottom is where it will tell you exactly how many stones are in that particular shape that you're working on. So right now, that inside foyer, we have 1,914 stones. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to release those rhinestones and we'll give Silhouette a minute to work its magic. And when it does, of course, now you can see that it has put a box around every single one of those holes. So that means that you can now start manually manipulating those stones. You can add stones, you can delete stones to your preference or your liking. Okay. I said earlier, I thought maybe I might go ahead and delete something up here in the R, right? Let's see if I delete these two right here, if that then makes the fry part easier to read or harder to read. Anybody have a thought behind that? Should we put the two stones back or should we leave them out?
I think leave them out.
Leave them out? Okay, first person that says it gets the prize. So we'll leave those out. Okay, I'm gonna zoom in a little bit so I can see. And I think I want to add a stone right here. So in order to do that, you can do it one of two ways. Okay, you can click on your stone and you can right click and do duplicate. Okay, and it will duplicate a stone. And then I can just use my arrow key and just kind of position it where I want it to be. You want to make sure when you're positioning your stones that you leave ample room so that they're not overlapping. Okay. The other way you can add a stone is I'm going to go ahead and delete this one. If you click on your stone, and I learned this trick from my friend Jackie, but you can click on your stone, right? And if you click on it, if you hold down the Alt key on your keyboard, okay, hold down the Alt, and when you click on it, you see how right now, I'm going to zoom in a little bit, and hopefully that zoomed in for you guys as well. But when you click on it, you see how right now my arrow is a cursor. I mean, right now my cursor is an arrow. When I put it on the stone, now it looks like a pointed finger, right? When I when I hold down the Alt key, that pointed finger is then turns into a crosshair. Okay. Everybody see that? It turned into a crosshair. I release it. It goes back to the pointed finger. When I click on Alt, it turns it into that. If I just click and drag with my mouse, it will drag out, it will duplicate that stone or that hole. Everybody get that?
Mm-hmm.
So it's really whatever your preference is. Like sometimes when you're working with a lot of stones that you want to add, it might be faster to just kind of hold down the Alt key, and then all you do is just click, drag, click, drag, click, drag, click, drag. Okay. Actually, you don't even have to click. As long as that crosshair is there and you're holding the Alt key, you just can go with your mouse and you just kind of, you just have to kind of click and keep dragging. Okay. But we don't need all of these. Or sometimes it's good to drag out a bunch of them and then you'll have them for placement later on. But I'm going to go ahead and just drag a box around those and carefully delete what we don't need. And we put our stone there. I'm going to just use my arrow key and space it, give it some ample spacing. And then I'm going to look and see what else I might want to fix quickly in this design. I think over here in the A, and the Y, I think we can fit a stone in there. Okay, so I'm just going to come in here and I'm going to drag out a stone. I use my Alt key and just drag out a stone. And then I will try to position it, even if it means I have to move the other one, which is okay. Okay, I'm going to try to keep it in line so that everything kind of still stays symmetrical. So I've added that stone. I think we could go ahead and delete this one right here. I don't think we need it. Nope. And I'm gonna, let's see. I think I'm gonna delete this one. And I'm gonna delete these right there. I think that gives us our Y shape. And let me see, I'm gonna delete that one. Scroll out a little bit so I can see it. I don't know. I'll put that one back. So I'll go back here a minute, put that one back. And I'll leave that one because I think that one helps keep that circular Y part of of this particular letter. Okay. Here in the A, I see some funkiness going on in here. So I'm gonna see if I can add maybe a stone right in here to kind of shape this off just a little bit more, right? Try to make that A a little bit more curved. So I'm going to add a stone right there. Okay. Zoom out so you can see it. I might see if I add, this little area right in here is kind of messing with me, but I don't want to
You're
move
gonna
too
have to
many
leave
stones.
that one like it is.
So I probably will just go ahead and leave that. What I might do is when I pressed it, if it was for me, if I had a SS6 stone, I might just manually add the SS6 stone to that when I pressed it, just to fill in that spot. So I'm just going to look at anything else and see if there's anything else that I think needs fixing. As I look at this, I think everything else looks pretty decent. So I'm happy with that. So I will come out, and before I start messing with the other parts of or I can go ahead and do them now. Like I said, I'm happy with my scatter. I think I like the alignment the way that it is. So I can go ahead, and I accidentally moved that. I'm going to put it back. So I can go ahead and click on those offsets. Be careful because you don't want them to move. And just go ahead and release the rhinestones. So we got 143 stones in the very first one. In the second one, we have 119 stones. And then the last one, we have 53. So if anybody remembers, we had about 1,900 stones in the Friar, and another, what about 300 stones in the offset? So this total design has about a little over 2,200 stones. That's not too bad. Not too bad. So now that I have everything, all my stones have been released, right? We have two separate layers here that we would need to cut, right? Right. Understand that you don't necessarily want to cut this as one design. I mean, as one template, because if you try to brush your stones in, you're going to get stones in areas that you don't want. So you can, if you like to do the tape off method, where you maybe use painter's tape and you tape off the area of the design that you don't want. So in this instance, you could cut it all as one template, put your painter's tape around the scatter portion of it, brush in your stones for the inside part, and then carefully remove your painter's tape so that you could then brush in your offset. If you are proficient and you can do that, more power to you. I typically would just go ahead and bite the bullet and cut the two different layers of flock, so that I don't have to worry about doing all of that taping. But in any event, if you wanted to create the separate layers, right now, because all of the rhinestones are separated, it would be very hard for us to go in here and do that. So what I like to do is to come over here, and at the very top, okay, of our toolbar, and I'm going to have a hard time getting to it. Okay, I see it. You want to go to the very top, and you want to click on panels. Okay, so when you click on panels, we want to open up the select by color panel. So click select by color, and that's good. And then what we want to do is, we don't want to select by line, right? Because we're not doing the outline. We want to select by fill. Okay, so we're going to click the by fill. And when you do that, you should see the colors that you currently have on your mat. And this works for when you have things that are on the mat. See, you have your options here, because sometimes you may have things that are off the mat, like we have, the original design that we worked on. And if it happened to be the same color as something that I was working on the media mat, I don't want to select that. I only want to select what's in the media. So I will make sure that my only shapes on media option is selected, but I'm going to go ahead and select the blue. Okay. When I do that, it selects everything in the blue. You can then right click with your mouse and click group. Okay. From there, I like to also, once it's grouped everything together, I like to also go ahead and right click and make it a compound path. Okay. Now, when I click make compound path, it's probably going to change the color from blue back to the default of just what we started out as. And that's okay, because all you have to do, if you want to see the color or whatever, is go back to the paint palette and then just color it back in again. Okay. And then remove the outline. Okay. But what this does is, if you need to cut with a Cricut cutting machine, okay, you want to make sure that you send your design, when you import it, you want to make sure that everything is a compound path, so that when you import it into Cricut, it treats it all as one object. Okay, because if you don't, what'll happen is it'll come in grouped, but then when you go to make it, okay, it may then ungroup everything on the mat, and then you'll have just a bunch of circles when you go to make it on your mat. Okay, so just get into the habit of when you group your stones together, you're going to group them together first, and then you're going to make them a compound pad. Okay, and if you just remember to just routinely, like that's the mantra, group, make compound pad. You'll do it every time, it'll become routine and you won't have to think about it. Okay, so we've gotten our blue, and now I want to come back and I want to do the white. So we're going to open the panels, go back to panels again, click panels, select by color. This time we're going to select the white. Oh, we can't do that yet. Yes, we can. It's selected. I can see it. It's because the mat's black, but all of it's selected. I'm going to right click, hit group, and make compound path. And then just for aesthetic purposes, I'm going to turn the color back on, turn them white, and we're done. So now we have our 2 layers that we could then send to the machine to cut. Okay. So does anybody have any questions? Yes, Mia.
I always have questions.
That's okay. I'm
So
glad you
I
have
was,
questions.
thank you. So I was trying to find your Friday. I could not find your Friday, but I was able to find 2 other Fridays. So my question is, how do you know that an image is good for using the trace? Because one of them looks okay and the other one looks like trash
When
because it had a
I go ahead, say what you're gonna say.
because I it. Do you want me to show you? Because it looks, I don't know, it looks weird
You
to
can
me.
like, I a lot of times what I like to do, and I don't always select images that have a lot of color in them because sometimes the trace doesn't work well. Although I came across a video today on TikTok from the Silhouette Studios Facebook group, and she had done a video where you can use some of the imaging tools to remove the background from your graphic. So I have to try that and see how that works. But a lot of times what happens is when I'm looking to create, rhinestone designs from graphics or things that I've seen on, Google or from my Creative Fabrica subscription or something of that nature, I usually will pick things that have, that are black and white so that it's very easy for the silhouette to perform the trace. So,
Okay.
but if you want to go ahead and share your screen real quick, I can kind of look at what you got and see.
Okay, sure. Hold
Okay,
on
let me
one.
stop sharing but before I stop sharing my screen, did anybody else have any questions on what we did today?
I have one
Yeah, I'm good.
after Mia finish hers.
I'm sorry, did somebody have, because it came in a little garbled.
Yes, this is Adeline. I said I have one, but I can wait till after Mia finish hers.
Okay, okay. All right, so I'm gonna
I
stop sharing
do.
my screen. Oh,
Wait,
okay. Who's me? Oh, hey Karen.
Karen.
Hey sweetheart, how you doing?
I'm good. I'm sorry to bother everybody. But remember you were talking about something about putting a square in each of your layers so that when you go to line them up, you can line them up easier with some kind of folding method.
Yeah, okay, that's a whole nother class here. Remember, I'm just supposed to be teaching y'all a little 30-minute class, and here we've been an hour and 12 minutes.
Okay, moving on.
So we will, I promise I will come on and I will do some of these periodically with you guys to kind of show you, what I do and the things the tools and tips and tricks and things that I do when I'm creating templates. Or, again, if you guys want a more in-depth kind of one-on-one thing, again, I do teach classes and such, and so you can always schedule something with me. But today was just to show you how you do the little scatter.
Moving on.
Moving on. Okay, but anybody else?
No, thank you, Tanya. That was awesome.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And I'm also going to stop this recording just because I'm going to use part of this for my YouTube content. I hope that's okay with you guys. But I don't want to, make it a long, drawn out recording for YouTube. So thank you so much for participating with me today. I hope you guys learned something that you didn't already know. And if you did know it, maybe I taught you a tip or trick that you weren't aware of. I hope you'll come back and you'll do more teaching with me. And if you like this video, please like and subscribe.